Hello, James.
Hello. How you doing?
Welcome back.
Oh, it's been a while, hasn't it? A couple of years. Yeah.
New studio, swanky place.
I know, new studio. I'm excited to be back. That sounds great. So.
No, thank you. No, thank you, because I know you're so busy. So obviously you've got so many different areas now. You've just done your EP, which I blooming loved. Oh my goodness, it's just amazing to see, because you've just been on tour with the Vamps recently. Yeah. I feel like you are constantly evolving as an artist, which is amazing to see. And I know, obviously, having worked for you a few years ago, seeing your development in things. But one area I don't ever get to hear much about is your childhood, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And I guess I wondered if we could start this episode with what you really faced growing up, I suppose, personal experiences that shaped who you became.
First of all, I had I still have really supportive parents. Pretty standard nuclear family background. And was supported with everything. I never really felt unloved or underloved or whatever. I think the biggest things that I think impacted me even to this day, like if we're speaking, there's loads of great things, music related, that have led to me where I am now. But I think actually, bizarrely, some of the more difficult moments of my life have kind of impacted me in a way that's still relevant now. And I think two things, maybe three things. First, severe acne was an interesting one, being like from age 12 to still now having issues with my skin. And I think being that kind of 14, 15-year-old, well, guy or girl, like that's always a difficult moment in life to try and figure out the sort of person you are. And I feel like I have like a very strong memory of trying to transition from being like a child to an adult from in a social perspective. So it would be like, for example, if there was a girl I really fancied at school, I'd be like, today I'm going to say hi to her in the corridor. And like, even just having those thoughts of like trying to adopt that sense of, I don't know, maturity in like a social situation. It went from being terrified of girls to ignoring them to all of a sudden trying to do, break down that barrier and feeling like I'd evolved and grown as a person. But one of the biggest hindrances to that was having acne. It really affected me psychologically, and from a confidence perspective, I really struggled kind of looking people in the eye, and I was worried for a while it was becoming like a real defining factor in my character. And so that was really difficult. And then accompanied with that was this kind of, when I was a little bit older, when the food stuff kind of, we've spoken about this before, but I was underconfident because of my acne. And I wonder whether part of that was one of the drives behind trying to get to this physique, try to like reach this, I guess, stereotype that a lot of guys my age at the time were trying to replicate. So I think that acne, a relationship with food and fitness, and then the third one is this desire to start making music, but in an environment that was predominantly like sports based. So having these three things that kind of made me slightly, the one in the middle, the exercise and the food, I think was probably trying to make me feel like I could be accepted within in the social hierarchy system at some point. Yeah. Despite the fact I had severe acne and was doing music, because it's funny, like speaking in hindsight about doing music at school, I think the presumption is that, and I've got some friends, especially American friends, that doing the music was kind of like cool, and it kind of put them up at the top of that.
Oh, the school hierarchy in America.
Ladder. Yeah, they're like the performers and all that stuff.
Don't have that here.
No, for me it was kind of, and because I guess the music that I loved the music I was making. It's not, hopefully it's a bit different from what I'm doing now, but it's not too dissimilar from like a genre perspective. It was sort of that infancy stage of getting into this kind of singer-songwriter folk music. But I think if I had been maybe like rapping or doing like heavy like rock music, I would have been kind of cooler. I was doing quite emotionally vulnerable songs about girls, and I just sort of went into this position in and also I took a year out after GCSEs, and so when I came back to do sixth form, I didn't know anyone. I was a year older but in the year below, so I was kind of this slightly strange guy who was into music, didn't really have a solid group of of like guy friends. I had like a few like girlfriends, but just I was just a bit of a lost soul, I think, at school. But at the same time, I feel that those challenges were all kind of learning opportunities, and that's why even now, like the name of my first EP is Manabe, which means learning in Japanese, and like
I love that.
Oh, thanks.
Really
when I say learning, I think people maybe think, oh, it means like trigonometry, but actually it's the social, I guess, like evolution of learning how to be comfortable in a room of new people, or challenges like having vocal surgery, or I'm a celeb, or all that stuff. Like these benchmarks in my life where I've really stepped outside my comfort zone. I've done that to try and grow and evolve as a person. There's a few moments in my life that I
mean, they're defining. And
yeah.
No, but like you've said, I think so many people listening can relate to that, because the challenges you face from the age brackets you've specifically mentioned as well, you technically are very vulnerable, because you are discovering your identity. And I have to say, obviously being older, but I only felt in my 30s, I feel way more comfortable and calm. And I do feel from teenage years throughout your 20s, it is a period of exploration, and it is something that's going to come out in your music, which must be how you felt transitioning from doing solo EPs, from doing your work with the Vamps as well. It must feel quite liberating to express.
Yeah, and I think so when all of my peers went off to university, I started the Vamps. So in many ways, I missed out on like certain moments of speaking about transitions, that child to adult, but then sort of that teenage to adult thing, like living on your own for the first time and all that stuff. I didn't do that in the conventional way. I did that in like an incredible way where I got to travel and I had the success, and obviously like really happy and wouldn't take back what I've done with the Vamps. But I think I kind of found myself on this, and the four of us did. We found ourselves on this like really crazy paced like rocket ship going up, doing things, and everything was so quick and fast paced that it was quite difficult to kind of keep a grasp on what we'd done. And before we realised, it was sort of this cycle of like craziness and hysteria. And before you realise, 7-8 years has gone past.
Wow.
And that's why, I mean, it's been like 12 years since I started the Vamps process. And I think what's been lovely in my I think like the pandemic was a moment to stop and reflect, and like saying to my mum yesterday, I lost kind of age 27 through to 30, which I think I mean, obviously people lost a lot more in the pandemic than I'm not saying that, but I think as a person, the end of your 20s is kind of, I always thought that would be like my really fun time to do really nice things. And then I come out of the pandemic 30 and I'm like, oh wow. But actually what it forced me to do is reflect on what I'd done and really try and do some internal growing. And from that, I guess like soul searching, for want of a better phrase, led to this rediscovered love of music. Because before three years ago, I didn't write songs really, like for a long time. I did a lot of the stuff in the early of the Vamps, and every so often would contribute to the Vamps, but I would never write songs at home. I didn't have any instruments at home for years. Just sort of fell out of love with songwriting, and then the pandemic and various personal things kind of like led me back to music, and it's resulted in me now writing more songs than I've ever done before. And I would like to hope writing songs that people recognize are real, and there's like my dream is to have like a sense of transparency with my music, where people listen and can picture me like recording it in my spare bedroom, and the lyrics I'm singing are real and tangible. So it's been a bizarre sort of few years of growth. For sure.
It's a lot to almost summarize, I think. Like you mentioned, pandemic, teenage acne, and different periods. And if you think about self-expression and you think about growth and development, and also how open you are about discussing your relationship with food, and are you very acutely aware that you have a voice that can help others? Because there must be a defining moment where you feel comfortable in sharing certain levels of information. Like, thank you for coming on again to have this conversation with us, because the charity BEAT at the moment, which is the UK eating disorder charity, say 1 in 4 males now have eating disorders. And I know you're very open as a male in the spotlight speaking about it, and it's rare. What was the moment that you thought, right, well, my music's going well, I'm writing a lot, I do think I can speak out about this as well?
I think it's tough. I think the reason that I feel so comfortable speaking about it is like I'm just like a pretty normal guy from a normal background, and the same with all the Vamps, like just very like hopefully approachable people, pretty chill. And maybe it's because I realized early on, I go through loads of bizarre phases, like we all do and stuff, but sort of when the Vamps was kind of happening, I perhaps wasn't too vocal about the eating stuff, but that's because I'd kind of convinced myself that I was living this like crazy healthy, in inverted commas, lifestyle. So I thought there was nothing wrong. But I think even in those early phases, I was frustrated with the periods I'd gone through at school where I'd perhaps felt kind of quite low or not quite myself. The fact that I'd been quite reluctant to communicate those feelings with people around me. So as soon as I found myself in a position of semi-influence with the Vamps, where I felt like I'd found like a tribe per se, I was sort of saying earlier, I didn't really I had like a lot of great friends growing up, but then all of my male friends went to grammar school and I went to a comprehensive, and I immediately lost a lot of my social security there. So I think once I found that again, I was like, okay, like maybe it's time. I'd kind of escaped the people that would like pick on me for my music, or got away from the people that would look at my acne scars or like the cover up I'd put on, and I felt maybe it's time to do that, because I felt more equipped to deal with that. And also I kind of had quite a conscious decision to try my best to live as transparently as possible, because I think a lot of people go one way where they're extremely private about everything, which I rate and respect. But knowing the person I am, very addicted to constantly be busy with work, or I just like an overly openly emotional person, like at that point and moving forward, I just wanted to try and share everything, which probably I did as a coping mechanism, knowing that no one could like catch me out or trip me up, or there could be like a picture of me, like, I don't know, with my wife or so. I was just really open about it. And actually that's, I think for me, one of the best things that I could have done, because now when things come up, even like more recently, things that have kind of changed in my life that like hurdles or challenges, I've been able to speak about them, whilst if I maybe hadn't, and maybe if I'd repressed my struggles with certain things up to this point, it would have been really hard to do. But now I don't feel like any sort of like reluctancy to share, which is good.
It's interesting you say that by sharing information, it's almost like a coping strategy, because it's a release. And actually, I think in a way, a lot of what we do know in terms of gender stereotyping, but men don't share in the same way, generically speaking, that women do. And it's actually a really important release. And I think also as a musician, you've got that extra element where, you guys are writing, you're creating, you're able to output that. But did you grow up with social media? So when you were going through the period you've mentioned, very difficult times, was there social media at school then for you?
So it was we had MySpace and Bebo, which was...
Oh, I remember Bebo.
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was that kind of era, which... Yeah. I mean, like that, and I had,
but it wasn't like the likes.
It was completely, it was a completely different thing. It was, there was a more, and actually, everyone on, I mean, MySpace, I started putting music up, so I started to get people I didn't actually physically know like reach out to me. But on Bebo, I think that's why I actually, in one sense, it's nice because you know everyone you're speaking to, but on the other hand, it was really hard because there was faces put to, which is funny because like, a lot of the trolling stuff, one of the horrible things is you don't know who it is. But for me, like people saying they don't like my music, I could actually see exactly who it was. And then I'd see him and still
you're like, all right.
So that was kind of difficult to deal with. So I did have social media, but I do feel there was this like, it was like MSN Messenger as well, like that kind of stuff. And I think there was an element of, and dial-up internet and stuff in the early days. I think there was a sense of switching off. Like I didn't have a smartphone until I was much older, so I had that. But I mean, thank God it was hard enough as it was. I really sort of feel for people that are going through like online bullying or stuff now, because it's just, you can never escape it. It's
I mean, you must have experienced, obviously, the Vamps, you know, being a public profile, you will experience negative comments. Do you have a set way of dealing with that or coping with it?
I think I go through like stages. I think in the early days I was sort of like adamant to reply to everyone and sort of argue and stuff, and then actually meeting my wife was a big thing, because she sort of she really avoids that kind of confrontation stuff. And I think I've realized there's like a real beauty of recognizing that the people that like send a lot of these comments, and luckily I don't really get that many, but if I do, I know that these people don't actually know who I am. And I think that's something I can take from it. And I know that a lot, like sometimes actually, like I've been kind of getting into things slightly outside of music, you know, different communities of fans, and I know that the first time I'll appear on a podcast about, I don't know, watches, for example, there will be like a lot of people that will probably turn their nose up at it, but then over time, when I see people at like watch events, for example, we'll have a conversation, and I try to change that perception of, you know, I'm really proud of what I've done with the Vamps, but I think a lot of the online stuff is people that don't know you and feel that they do. So for me now, if I do get a negative comment, I try my best to think, look, like if you're in a room with this person, one, they wouldn't say that stuff, and two, they'd probably get on with you anyway. So I try not to take it personally. But yeah, now I just don't. Well, for a start, don't use Twitter anymore. Like that was where I used to get a lot of the stuff. Yeah. And then Instagram comments. I think I'm very lucky that the fan base that I have with the Vamps, they're like so lovely and supportive, and there's like a real community feel to the Vamps fan base. So that means if someone does kind of come out of nowhere and comment on something, it would be quite bizarre. I don't really do massive, like I went through a period of time doing quite a lot of TV stuff, and I kind of moved away from that, because actually like putting yourself on the screen to the masses all the time, like opens you up to a lot of that stuff. But now I don't get that stuff unless I'm going to debate like Brexit on TV, then it's bound to annoy someone. But
it's nice you say that, because I think the fan base is obviously so important for you at the Vamps. I remember when I got to go and see you at the O2, you invited me down to see it, and the crowd, they just absolutely love you guys. But of course, the pressure of being in the limelight to a degree, let's talk about where the relationship with food really started. So you said it could have come from obviously feeling insecure, having acne, not fitting in at school, but do you feel that obviously becoming a successful musician heightened that for you?
I think like a lot of like media and stuff, definitely after the Jungle, tried to pin my issues with food on like Fame or the Vamps, and I think the reality is I went into the band process already with issues, like and I think just the nature of what the Vamps is and was, you know, the schedule, the touring, the craziness, I think it just like amplified things. So I think it kind of comes down to control, I think. And when I keep on saying control, people are like terrified I'm like really controlling with my wife. I don't mean like that, but with my life, with what I can control within myself, my habits, my tendencies are
like when you didn't have a kitchen. I remember how stressful that was for you guys, and that was quite a long time without the kitchen.
Yeah. And I mean, like I'm really trying my best to be more relaxed with it, but it, you know, that's where it stemmed from. I think it went from being sort of 16, 17, really on top of exactly what I was eating, the sort of exercise I was doing, to then going on tour kind of age.
And when you say being on top of it, so at that time in life, was it very much getting inspiration from other media outlets you'd seen of successful people, or was it driven by what you had discovered yourself, what you thought you should be doing?
Bit of both. I mean, I definitely was on Google trying to find out like the diets that they had for 300, like the movie, and try and copy that.
Like what Hugh Jackman eats or something.
Like, and it was because it was before Instagram, and on Twitter, and definitely before TikTok. It wasn't like, oh, I'm looking at blah blah. There might be like you'd see Zac Efron in a thing, and I'd Google what's his workout thing. But no, it wasn't really that monotony of seeing loads of people on a scrolling page. I mean, there was a lot of the branding in the shops really impacted on me. I probably mentioned it last time I came on, but the whole like American SoCal vibe kind of really
the marketing's heavy.
It's kind of got slightly better, but it always used to be kind of topless men on a beach, and I think everything around me shouted at that time that if you want to be like popular, successful man, you have to look like this, and so I kind of looked out for ways of replicating that physique. So then when I started the Vamps with this kind of preconditioned idea of how I should look, as soon as my ability to go to the gym every day, or to travel with my supplements, or to eat boiled chicken and broccoli went out the window or was drastically reduced, I kind of went into meltdown and tried to control it even more, and that kind of led to this really negative approach to food and exercise.
A vicious cycle.
Yeah. I mean, and like I like to try and compare. Well, my experience with exercise and stuff is kind of like people that are addicted to making money. Like, you can never really be truly satisfied with your body. Like, and I think we should get to a point where, you know, you accept that's how it is. Because for me, it would be I'd like starve myself to get like a really toned like six pack, but then as soon as I did that, then my arms would be like much smaller because I had such low body fat. And it was just constantly, and
you realise that it's not attainable.
Exactly. So it's about like, I wish that when I was 16, 17, I didn't have that kind of warped perception that physique was obtainable, and also that it was healthy, because even the word healthy and the word diet frustrates me even now, because it's not, you can't do like a 6 week I mean, like, speaking about the jungle, I did effectively a 3 week crash course.
I know.
And I felt awful.
I know.
Absolutely awful.
It was worrying to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
But it just like from a fatigue perspective, it was just so bad. And I'm thinking that's how, like, I've seen people that have got into shape for like bodybuilding competitions, but I never really understood how they felt. And obviously I wasn't big, I was really thin, but like just my energy completely sapped, and I felt awful. So I think it's just about recognizing that sort of physique is not something that anyone should want to achieve. No. It's horrible for me.
No, I know. And I like that you've literally said, look, it doesn't mean it's health. What people look like does not dictate their health. You have no idea what's going on behind closed doors, and one body image or ideal is not suitable for everyone. We're all built genetically differently. We've all got different gut bacteria, which we discuss a lot now in the world of nutritional science. It's emerging, it's growing. And I think what's so fascinating is that you're able to openly say that, because a lot of women talk about the Special K diet era or the American fads that come around. Yeah. And you get a lot of bravado for men, I guess, which is why it's so good we're having these conversations, because a six-pack is lean body fat. There's nothing more to it. Anyone can have one if they just don't have any. Yeah, they just don't eat. You will get a six-pack, everyone. It's not how many crunches you do at home. So let's talk about the road to recovery.
Okay, yeah.
Let's bring it up a tone. James is in a really good place. He's releasing incredible music. He has the most wonderful, beautiful wife, inside and out. And, you guys are a great team. Would you say that was a great part of the recovery as well, having that support?
Yeah, I mean, just from the food perspective, when I met her, it was kind of like ultimatum vibes, where I was thinking, well, if I want to have a successful or healthy best shot, I don't like the word healthy, but normal, maybe more shot at a relationship.
Good relationship.
I needed to be able to go out for dinner, like, and not want to, not regret it massively.
Even you just saying that, going out for dinner, it's the little things that people don't realise. When you have a poor relationship with food, things that really hold people back are often the societal aspects of food, because food is celebration, it's food is mourning, food is used in so many different ways, isn't it? It's like you said, the dating scene or socialising with your partner, it's often let's go for dinner.
Yeah. All of that. And like, I mean, my wife's been great, but I would say my relationship with the Vamps boys has really enhanced, because, I am probably the more subdued, slightly older member, like, from a social. I don't really go out club. I don't go clubbing.
Yeah.
But now I'm more relaxed with the food, or like having a drink every so often. We can have some really, really fun evenings, and I think the bond of the Vamps has drastically enhanced since. We can go and we could share like nachos, like which just never would have happened back in the day.
Because it was a fair food. It was one of those items.
Well, it all was, but it's even getting me in the same restaurant as those boys in the early days was pretty much impossible if I couldn't have you know, my straight chicken, dry chicken with boiled veg, then I wouldn't be happy.
And it wasn't picked up on, was it, either at the time? I don't think you were really offered support for that area.
Well, I think it's really important to say that at the time there was this big thing with a lot of guys of our age going through this stuff. I also think I was a really loud kind of supporter of, like, as I said before, I'm the pinnacle of health. I'm really happy. I'm you know, and I think it would have been like impossible, actually, definitely for the other Vamps boys, who, bear in mind, I'm the oldest in the band, so we're looking at Connor, who was 16, 17, 18, like, also going through difficult things of being that age. So they would look at me being the oldest member and someone that is always in the gym, like, doing stuff, and probably, and, you know, obviously would have thought it was a great thing. And so like, the support thing was hard. Like, I know that my parents hated me taking all the supplements and bits and pieces, but I do think that, well, there was not much conversation in the media, definitely around, like, men and, like, eating issues. So from a support perspective, I'm not surprised. I don't feel like I was neglected by anyone, because there was just no conversation had anyway in society at the time.
It was like it wasn't even an option to discuss. No. Isn't that insane? When you look back on it and you think about it, we wonder why we're currently in a mental health crisis. Obviously, post-pandemic was a whole different thing anyway. But, you know, I think it's the knock-on effects of this type of thing. Obviously, thank goodness you're in a fantastic place, but this isn't the case for everyone listening, guys. And I think it's really important to say you can reach out and get help if you need to. You know, there are people out there that you can talk to, and there are people that can help you learn more, because bone density can be affected. I mean, there's long-term knock-on consequences. But when we talk about moving forwards, obviously, with everything else in life, would you say you now have, like, a go-to kind of routine that you love every day? Have you got your little rituals that whenever you go on tour, you have to eat X, Y, Z, or are you more free-flowing?
Not massively, and I think that's good.
Yes,
like,
I do.
I go through phases of, like, trying to do little things. I mean, like, the only thing I do every day is like Barocca first thing in the morning, right? Or something like that. Just try and get, like, some vitamins in. But I mean, like, the reality is, no, I don't actually. I go through periods of trying, like, intermittent fasting, but not for I feel like I'm fat, just because it's a nice reset and things. But no, I'm quite happy knowing that, you know, more often than not, I wake up and I'm not desperate to, like, get to the gym or I mean, like, I still like going to the gym, but it's not the same thing. Like, I didn't go to the gym in South Africa. I was in South Africa for 10 days, and I'm going to Bali in January for a couple of weeks, and, like, I probably won't go to the gym, and I didn't go to the gym in South Africa. That's fine. Like, and I'm enjoying food, and it's just really nice to be able to go to places and order what I want. So I think from a routine perspective, not massively, just the odd like tablets and Barocca and water, like, but nothing major, no.
So I have to throw this in there, because obviously you went on the jungle a while ago, and I think a lot of people are very interested. Obviously, you can't say certain things, but when you were in there and you were faced with all these different trials, was it really the camaraderie of, obviously, the close friendships you create that kind of pulled you through? Or did you have to go and really search deep to get through certain trials and things you have to do out there?
I think that, first of all, like, I was really lucky that my year was kind of the year, I think the only year that everyone got on. There was genuinely no arguments. But actually, like, the boring answer, but the most truth is, like, I was bored to death the entire time I was there.
Because the cameras don't show you all day.
You see, like, we were trying to figure this out when we were in camp, actually. This is how bored we were. We were like, well, if you factor in adverts for, like, an hour-long episode, they take up probably 15 minutes combined. So you're looking at, like, 40-ish, 45 minutes of, like, screen time. And then in that time, you have a trial that takes 10 minutes, right? And then there was always the interviews to camera, and then they do like the other one, the Dingo Dollar Challenge and all that stuff. So actually, they don't show you just sat around. But that, I would say, you know, they wake you up, I want to guess, by 6 a.m. you're, like, woken.
They wake you?
By, like, the voice in the sky.
The voice in the sky?
Good morning, campers. And you're like...
Oh, my gosh. I thought you woke up naturally to the buzzing of the insects.
But then you don't get given the food in the evening until... I mean, it's dark, so it must be like 8:30, 9, and it takes you hours to cook it, because if they're cooking like, I don't know, like an ostrich thing, and it's on like a little pan, it takes out, because you're terrified to not undercook that.
Well, so you don't
stuff.
get sick.
Yeah, so you wouldn't eat probably until 10, and then you're not going to sleep, and then you do all your interviews at the whatever it's called, Bush Telegraph, before you get to bed. So you don't get to bed till about 11. So you're on about 6 hours sleep a night.
No.
But then all day you're doing nothing. So it's...
So you're allowed to have a nap?
Yeah, you can once you're like up.
Okay.
But I don't know what it is, but I just couldn't. Like, no one really naps in the day when I was there. So the prospect of like leaving camp, because you're within, like, the camp's not as big as you might think. No. So like to leave that area, it psychologically was like a massive big deal, and kind of weird. Like, so much so that when I finally left the jungle, it was like overwhelming for a while. Like I've never really felt. I was only here for 3 weeks. Like I've never really felt that weird. Yeah, and I guess because you're in, what most people don't know is you're in isolation for like 4 or 5 days before. And when I say isolation, it's like you're not allowed to. Well, no technology, so you don't like so. Your familiarities, which if you think, like, I don't know what most people do listening, but when I have some time at home, I'll probably watch a series and then like text a bit.
Yeah, scrolling.
Scroll,
it's
right?
technology.
Yeah, you can't do either of those things. So the isolation is you've got like like a minder who will like take you if you want to get like a coffee outside, but really you're kind of stuck in a room for 5 days before. So really by the time you go into camp, you're already meant to be a bit weird.
Do they offer you psychological support?
So I think my year you have a consultation before you go in, and then it must have changed by now following, like a few tragedies. But when I came out, they're sort of like, how you doing? Like literally as you come out.
Oh,
and they're like,
no time to digest that.
No, but then to be fair,
is that better?
I think we're all offered like a session once you're home if you're going through stuff, and I didn't. I probably should have had it, but I didn't. But I think you want to do trials, you want to do anything because you are so bored. So I did one day where it was me, John Barrowman. Who was the other one? Someone else. One of the girls.
Love his voice, John Barrowman.
Yeah, he's great. We went out for like a day of expedition kind of thing, and being out of camp for an entire day was crazy. So I think doing the trials I really enjoyed. I mean, like some of the horrible things where I have like spiders on my head, that was horrible, but doing them was a reason to leave camp. But what is also difficult is if you're doing the trials, especially in the evening, and you're covered, like there's always, like when I did it, there was always an element of like you're getting covered in something. Even if you're doing like I don't know, a drinking thing, somehow you're gonna have cockroaches. And like the smell of that stuff is horrible. Like I can't describe it, but you don't have a shower, obviously. So like your shower in camp is a freezing cold like thing of water coming down. And what I don't think it really shows it on TV is in the evenings in camp, it's pretty cold. Like everyone's wearing like jackets and stuff. So you get back covered in like fish guts and cockroaches, and then you're like, you have to have a shower to get it off. So you're stood there freezing cold with that. Or you sit in the pool thing, which has got enormous water spiders like the size of your hand just on it, or like they've got these like yabby things which are like lobsters in there. It's like I just didn't want to do that, so I did, but like it's just not. It's horrible, really. You never feel clean.
On high alert. You never feel clean.
I felt clean.
I wondered about the clothing as well. It's like you always wear the same thing.
You have to. You wash it yourself, but like it's just
no. Yeah. Okay, so to put it lightly, it is a pretty psychologically intense experience,
which I didn't think it would be. Like I was kind of. I was always a big fan of the show.
Yeah.
I went into that show without a thought of that side. It's almost also to the point of whenever you see people on there crying within like a week, I'm like, what are you doing? But I cried, I think the first day I went into camp.
Yeah.
Every day as well. Yeah. And it's that really, really bizarre feeling of isolation where you're put in, like, again, the presumption is it's amazing that you're in sun and you're there for like 3 weeks and you kind of can just lie about all day. But the reality is it's really isolating being in a place with people you don't like, especially me. Like I would love to believe that people think I am like a normal person, because I am just like a normal kid, went to school, started music, got in a band, all of a sudden did this bloody show.
Yeah.
So I'm like surrounded by like these people that I see as celebrities.
Yeah, that you've always seen on the TV.
But I don't, but because of that, I don't really fit. It's not like I'm in there with like a group of my mates. I mean, by the end it was, but I felt really alone, really kind of isolated, and just an absolute mess. And again, saying, you know, you go in with that 5 days of isolation where you've not spoken. So, and you're in Australia, so you're jet lagged as well. So basically you land
sleep
in
deprived,
Brisbane.
because they make you sleep deprived.
Yeah. Land in Brisbane, you get one phone call for like 2 minutes. So I called my wife, and then they take your phone, and then that's it. So then you have 5 days before you go in with no technology, and then you have the...
Why do they make you do that?
I think it's like a mental preparation.
Oh, really?
Well, I think...
But they didn't explain it to you. That's really...
I think they...
They must have said it.
To be fair, they do. I think what they say is, and I get it, the idea is they don't want the people to know who's in the camp with you.
Of course,
Because obviously if you're all arriving in like the week before, then if you're on your phone, you can see paparazzi pictures of people arriving. But the reality is, like, by the time you go in, you kind of know who else is in there, because like all the papers, like all these agents probably tip the press and be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So I knew everyone going in. But yeah, it was crazy, and it really...
You'd never do it again?
I don't think so.
No.
I think you know what, I would do it again with the same people.
Yes, if you had them. It's funny because obviously having other clients and guests of people that have done various shows like Bear Grylls or, you know, Dancing on Ice or something, they always say, I don't think any of... Well, Bear Grylls actually is as hardcore as Jungle. Those two shows...
Bear Grylls is worse, I'm sure.
It was, pretty bad health outcome after that show, but... It's so interesting because would you do it again is the ultimate question I often ask people, and they're like, maybe, maybe not. I just think it's something you'll have forever as a memory of something that was quite challenging. But equally, it will stick with you. There must be moments when you find yourself alone. Does it kind of take you back?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to say, like, a lot of people that say they would do it again probably went in to do that show for different reasons that I went in for. So I didn't go in for, like, a big payout or loads of brand deals or like fame. I really didn't, to the point where I didn't capitalize, as like the industry was saying, coming out, because I didn't want to. I was really happy with the Vamps, and
I think you were just happy to be out, to be honest.
I hated it. I wanted to go in to challenge myself, and because I was a huge fan of the show. So I think people that would do it again probably did it because they, you know, had their reasons. But yeah, no, it was a challenge. But actually yesterday I went into the loft to get do some Christmas stuff, and I opened a box thinking it was decorations, and it was my hat in the jungle.
No way.
And I'd not seen that hat.
You should put it on the tree as a decoration.
Yeah, I know.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, sometime because it was 2018, and I've done a lot of growing, I think, emotionally since that show. A lot of things have happened. I think it almost feels like a bizarre thing that never happened, to me. It just...
Our brain protects ourselves. So from those memories, and of course, because you were sleep deprived, not fed enough food, that period of week, your brain goes into these protective moments. But I've got so many questions from our listeners for you. So I have to get them in. Otherwise, I'm so bad. I never look at the brief of questions that I'm meant to ask you. But I'm pretty sure we covered most of the ones we were meant to go into. So Sarah has said... well, I'm struggling. What was the turning point for you to get better? So was there like one specific light bulb moment, or was it a gradual kind of realization?
I mean, like, there's so many different moments in my life where I kind of go through something and feel like I've come out the, like, again, not to go on about the jungle because it was years ago, but I went into that show thinking I was fixed with my food stuff. And then coming out of that show, I realized actually I wasn't fixed. So I don't think there was a turning point per se. I do feel like, it's quite cliche, but the people around you, like the conversations you have with them can be real, like, impactful moments in your life, and that goes across the whole mental health thing for me anyway. But I think being able to have like a real honest conversation with someone about something like an obsession with the gym, like, I think for me, if you wake up first thing and you're almost like itching, you know, like, I mean, I really like coffee, but so sometimes I'm really like, I can't wait to have a coffee. If you're like that with going to the gym every day, or if you can't go to the gym, or if you can't eat the certain foods you want, or if you beat yourself up after eating something, I think for me that's like a real alarm in my head, in my life. And I think that's when I speak to my wife about it. So I think turning points for me are trying my best to, and it's like awkward and embarrassing sometimes to admit those issues, but I think turning points for me have been speaking to people, whether it's my wife or bandmates or whatever. So I think sharing the load is the turning point.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Sarah, because yes, those things are red flags. You know, if it's getting in the way of you living your life and your happiness, definitely speak to somebody would be a good one. I think we've covered the question from Molly, actually. I think this one's a really interesting one. Did you get relapses? So I think people are assuming, this is from Will, I think people have assumed that there's defining moments where, you know, you go off track for a week, then you get on, but I know from speaking to you, obviously, it's not quite been like, oh, I've had a relapse, I need to go away for a week or two. No, I don't think it's quite like that, actually. Well,
I think I relapsed from a perspective of entertaining that negative thought process all the time, like almost every day, where it's like I'll think about something, and like for a moment I'll be like, oh, can I go to the gym? No. But actually that's fine. Yeah. So like, and that's the thing with mental health for me. It's not something that I feel I can sort or fix. It's constant things and challenges in life where something in my career might go away that I wasn't hoping for, and then it's how I deal with that. And if I'm not careful, I can go into these different ways of being like, oh, maybe I need to like sort of get into shape a bit more. But it's just about now realizing when you're going down that way. So relapse, I don't know if that's like the word per se. It's about learning to live with these tendencies and acknowledging that don't let yourself go too far down that road without kind of pulling yourself back.
Yeah, and I have to say, nourishment, obviously from a nutritional perspective, helps fuel your brain. So if you're not optimally nourished, you often can't see what's actually going on. And it's when you start to realise, you get those light bulb moments. You're like, oh, hang on a minute. Now, actually, I can think clearly and I can tackle those inner demons. It's like an internal dialogue sometimes that you're constantly having to say. Alison, I don't know how we're going to answer this one, actually. We'll try together. How do I think, obviously, she needs a male bit of advice here. How do I talk and broach the subject with my son, who I believe might be suffering with an eating disorder and an exercise addiction? So what would you have liked your mum? I know this is really hard.
It's really hard, especially because like I love my mum.
Yeah.
Like, she's so open with me in all these elements. But something in me I just really struggle with with speaking to my mum about, and I don't know if it's like just a boy thing or like
I've got two boys, so I'm just dreading it in the future. I'm like, please talk to me.
Well, I don't know. It's
hard.
The thing is, look, like my mum couldn't have said anything different to change the course of what's happened. Because I think if I go down that, or if someone says that kind of suggests there could be like an element of blame with that, and that's just not.
No, it's not like that. No, you can't.
It was a societal thing. I think
how to open that conversation.
Well, I know.
If she wanted to talk to you, even if you weren't going to speak to her, how could she?
Well, it's hard again because
pick the right moment.
Would say, and she did, like, oh, you're going to the gym a lot or whatever. My go-to is like, yeah, but I'm really healthy. Maybe it'd be something. I think if I had more people, like if Zac Efron, for example, had done something on social media back then, and been like, look, like I look like this for Baywatch or whatever it was, but actually, like, I hated it, blah blah blah. I didn't want to do that. I felt like rubbish. Then that would have really helped me. So maybe it's like trying to find. There are examples of people speaking about that now, like celebrities. Maybe it's trying your best to get those pieces of content watched by them.
That's good.
Maybe maybe try. I mean, I don't know how old
does
it
it say? Like, we just got the.
If you're sort of, it's hard because you don't want to like over control like the things that you're like they need to have like a sense of like slight freedom if they're getting to a certain age. But I'd be interested in seeing like the social media accounts that he follows, and maybe it's worth it might not go well, but maybe have a conversation about like if he is just scrolling and there's fitness influencers, maybe saying, well, look, like
have a look at what this one said.
Because it's really hard because like I'm a really stubborn person, and definitely then I was in this like point of denial. But I guess it's just about being there as best as you can. It's a really tough one. I don't envy that position.
I don't either. That's a really tough one, Alison. It is difficult, but I think that's the pro to social media, is that you can now access, just as much as we might be worried about it, you can access good information as well. You know, it is about who they're looking at. People like James speaking out about it. I think that's really helpful. I think we'll move on to our fact or fiction round.
Go on then.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, eating disorders only affect women.
I'm the proof. Yeah.
Fiction.
No, fiction, yeah.
Eating disorders are only a way to get attention.
These are funny, aren't they?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, fiction.
Fiction. You can only write music when you're in a tranquil space.
I actually think I get the best music when I'm not, when I'm erratic and I'm all over the place. So
interesting.
So, yeah.
Everyone's so different, aren't they, of what they do? Fiction. You need to eat well to perform well.
Well, I would say that's fact. I mean, I think what you can do is you can try your best to cloak an unhealthy diet with things like alcohol, which actually are doubly bad for you, especially with your voice. So you can try and mask it. But I'm genuinely a strong proponent now of really looking after yourself around.
Well, you mentioned with vocal surgery and
exactly,
things.
yeah. So
that's terrifying for a musician to go through that.
Yeah, it was really rubbish, and I think so. For me now, I don't drink any alcohol before I sing, and I don't drink any alcohol on stage, which, if you had seen me 5 years ago, you'd be baffled.
Oh my gosh, the dehydration would freak me out.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Especially for your chords. I'm just like, my God.
So that one's fact, I would say.
Yeah, fact. Yeah. Okay. Poor relationships with food can start at any age.
Yeah, fiction. Sorry, no, fact.
Fact.
Yeah, fiction. Fact.
Absolutely, any age at all. Recovery can look different for everyone. No one size fits all.
Absolutely, fact, yeah.
Relationships with food for men are on the rise.
Negative relationships. Yeah. I would say fact, but what is good is I've noticed a lot more men speak about it. So I would love to see that come down. But I mean, maybe I also think that maybe that going up is obviously quite an alarming thing, but it could be the fact that more people are recognizing they have issues. So it's a weird bittersweet thing.
Yeah, and you don't know what the cause or effect is. Is it social media? Is it that you're speaking out now?
People could have lived with this stuff for like 30 years.
Exactly.
Just realize, oh God, this is not normal.
Exactly. Reconnecting with nature is essential for your mental health.
It is for me, so I'd say fact. Yeah.
Fact. And finally, eating disorders are genetic.
I would say that's fiction, right? Because I mean, as far as I'm aware, my parents don't have eating disorders. Well, I don't know this, but isn't there something like hereditary with like mental health things though? So I don't know whether that. Maybe it's a grey area. I'm not sure.
That's an excellent fact or fiction round. Thank you. It's interesting. There are small genetic links, but it doesn't mean that to get an eating disorder, your parents have to have had an eating disorder.
No, of course, yeah.
And actually, what's fascinating is some of us just have this component in our brain that can be triggered by any random life event, and then once it's on, it's like a switch. It's on, and then you will always experience challenges with mental health because it's been flipped on. And it's research that they're looking at. So there's so many external things that can trigger that. And it just goes to show why people that have experienced PTSD or have traumatized brains from childhood, of course, or childhood experiences go forwards. But like you said, societal pressures, external factors all play a role. Anyway, that does nearly wrap up our episode, but we always finish with a feed for thought.
Okay.
So I'll start by saying, I think what's been so helpful today, and I think for so many people listening, is to hear the reality, because people, like you said, they don't know you, James. And people think they do. And I think what's so important is don't believe everything you see online or take it for gospel. You know, just because James performs a song about something that might be deeply emotive doesn't mean he's actually seriously depressed that day. Probably could be having a really blooming good day. So don't judge a book by its cover. Speak out. I think what's really hit home is please have conversations, open conversations with your friends, your family members, because that really is the key to any successful recovery for poor mental health. What would be your take-home message? I know, sorry, put you on the spot.
I think maybe not it is relevant to this conversation, but for me, like, you know, I'm 30 now. My friends are.
I still can't believe you're 30 now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know. I look 30 now.
But I think guys of my age and older, I think one thing that I've really benefited from is sometimes we're saying, you know, some of these conversations are difficult, especially when it's like guy to guy. So what I've realised is really good, or has been good for me, is trying to bring up or hint at these conversations whilst doing other activities. So I think a lot of men like me, if someone came in and sat down and said, like, tell me how you're feeling, I'd be like, I mean, I'm pretty good at speaking about that, but I know my mates would be like, God, they're like melt.
Yeah.
So I think, and that can go anywhere from playing a sport, like I'm rubbish at golf, but even going to like a driving range and, you know, speaking there, or all the way through, which I did a lot in the pandemic, is like gaming with headsets, just speak about loads of stuff and then ask little things. And so I think,
what, gaming with people you don't know?
No. God,
Sorry,
it's a weird like mix. I mean, I do play with people I don't know all the time, but no, like I go on with my mates on my headset.
Fine, sorry, you sound like I know about gaming. No. Oh my god.
So I think that from like I mean, maybe it's relevant to women as well, but I think for guys, a big take home would be, you don't have to have that like really cold, sober conversation of being like, come round next week, let's talk about how you feel. You know, you could be driving or something and they'd be sat next to you and you could just ask something. I think it dilutes the severity of that like interaction and confrontation. So I would say activities whilst trying to talk about some of the things we've touched on is probably the way in.
Oh my gosh, it's a brilliant take-home message. It's just reminded me that one of the best parenting tips I was given, now I'm a mum of 2, was if you're going to have a difficult conversation with your kids, try and do it in the car.
Right, okay.
So like it's almost like, you know,
no,
they can't though. They can't slam the door in your face. And equally they are just trapped in the back of there was a reason that the psychologist said that, and I can't remember.
Is it something to do with like, as the thing goes by, they can focus on what's going on outside, and it's and it's not because they're not having to look you in the face. Okay, back here.
So they're not having to look their parent in the face. I should have thought of that earlier, James.
But that's the same with like with the sport. You know, if you're playing, if you can't see them, if you're on a headset, it's great.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Thank you for coming on Food for Thought.
See you in 2 years.
Yeah.